Hello everyone, welcome back to the series of video lecture on the subject English for Skill Enhancement. I am Arif Ahammed. I teach English at the Department of SNH, MLR Institute of Technology. Today I will be talking about how to describe a place. That is the topic for today's lecture. Now let's see the overview of today's lecture. What are the things or aspects that I am going to cover for today's lecture? The first thing is I will be talking about how to describe a place, right? And then aspects that need to be included in the description. There are certain things that must be included in a description of a place. So I will be talking about them. So before going into the lecture, we have to first think about, what are the problems that we face while we start describing a place. If you reflect, you will understand that the problem is not with the information, lack of information, because normally we would be asked to describe a place which we are familiar with. So we already should have enough information about the place. But the moment we start writing, what happens? We get confused about arranging those information in proper order. Sometimes what happens? We tend to forget certain aspects, certain important aspect, which should be included in the description. So that's why this particular lecture will give you an idea about all those things. What are the information that should be included in a description of a place, as well as what are the components, what are the aspects, what are the factors that need to be included, and how they should be arranged. So these two things basically would be covered in today's lecture. So without further delay, let's move into the main part of the lecture, describing a place. So introduction. So what do we do when we start describing a place? The first part is introduction part. So we should definitely start with the name and type of the place, right? So which place you are going to describe. Now the name of the place and also the type of the place, which type of place it is, whether it is a city, it's a countryside, hill station, right? All those informations. So name and type of a place, and then mention if it is populated, secluded, busy or peaceful. And then, so these two things basically. First, name of the place, type of the place, what type of place it is, and then the general atmosphere you can talk about, like not general atmosphere as such, extra additional features like whether it is populated or whether it is a secluded place or whether it is a busy place or whether it is a peaceful place, right? So this particular part, this introduction part, what it will do, it will set the tone for your description with a brief overview. So this will work as a brief overview. Fine. So introduction part is over. Now let's move to the next part. How did you reach to the place? So this is also one thing, you have to include. Now here we need to understand one thing, that maybe this particular portion might not be required for description of all the places, right? So it depends on the places, which kind of places you have actually gone and or you are going to describe. Depending on that, you can decide. Let's say if you are going for a tourist spot, okay, obviously you can talk about this, how did you reach to the place, even inside a city. For example, I stay here at MLR IT right now. Now if I let's say if I have a plan to visit Charminar, so I can talk about how did I reach to that particular place, Charminar, right? So describe the journey, mode of transportation and experience. So what was your experience while going into that particular place? And also you can talk about mode of transportation, whether you went by train or flight or, bus, anything. Then, was it comfortable, adventurous, long or scenic? You can talk about the road also, whether the road was, beautiful, okay, full of greenery, right? There are certain places, which, if you want to go to those places, you have to go through, beautiful places, like the road would be very beautiful. So you can talk about whether it is an adventurous, whether it was comfortable, uncomfortable. You can talk about all these things. Then mention road, rail, air, or boat travel details if relevant. So you can talk about road, which like if you have traveled through a particular road, an iconic road, you can talk about that also. So how did you, first introduction, and then how did you reach the place? Next part, what is the next part of describing a place? Location and size of the place. So state the region, country or local area. So this you have already included in the introduction part only, but you can give little more detail about that place. Is it a big city, remote village, or hidden coastal town? Okay. Size and accessibility. Now, why this is important? Because size and accessibility influence the perception of the place. So while you are describing a place, your inherent purpose is to create a perception about the place, right? You want people to develop certain kind of idea about the place. Now, if you talk about these things, that perception would be enhanced, that perception would be built correctly. That's why including this information is very important. Then visual description, how does it look? Now here, this is very important, sensory description. So while describing a place, it is very important to include sensory description. So you can use or include sensory description when you are dealing with visual description of the place. How does the place look like? Whether it is a serene place, whether it is picturesque, dull, colorful, etc. Right? So the moment you include these words, these adjectives in the description, what happened? The reader starts visualizing the place. Right? So the readers, they start using their sense of vision. Right? So that's why it's very important. Describing natural features, building or landscapes, like how do those things look like? Landscape, whether it is beautiful, serene, picturesque, or you can talk about all those things. So you have to be specific and vivid. So your description should be very specific and very clear, and it will do, create a mental picture. Now this is very important, creating mental picture through words. If you are not doing it, if you are not able to do it, what happens? Your description remains less effective or not effective. Fine. Now next part, let's move to the next part, atmosphere, like feel of the place. What do you exactly feel about the place? So whether you can talk about the weather, whether it is humid, dry, breezy, cold, etc. Now talk about the overall vibe, whether the place is lively, sleepy, chaotic, etc. So these things, a general feel about the place, right? So it can be about the weather. It can also about the overall vibe of the place. Right? Now this sets the mood and enhances sensory impact. Now this particular portion also will enhances the sensory impact, which, as I already told, is very important while describing a place. Fine. Now let's see sounds and smell. You can talk about the sounds and smell. Add layers to, now these things, what they do, they add layers to your description with sensory details. Fine. Now, what you can do, you can talk about the traffic of that particular place, whether it is very congested, whether it is very noisy. You can talk about the nature, music, voices, silence. All these things you can talk about. You can talk about the smells of flowers, food, smoke, ocean breeze, etc. Now, certain breeze do have certain kind of smell also. You can talk about all these things. Now, these things are again very important. Normally, we tend to overlook these things. Please understand, sensory details is very important. In fact, they are mandatory. If your description is missing this particular features, your description will always be considered as ineffective. Why? Because it would be a simple, factual, dry kind of description. Whether the reader will read your description, he or she will not be able to create a mental picture of the place. So please remember, when you are describing a place, you are not just merely putting few words on the paper. What you are doing here, you are actually creating a mental picture. Fine? Okay. So then next things, you can talk about objects associated with the place. Now there might be certain other objects which are associated with the place. So you can focus on physical elements, or permanent or moving. And you can also talk about, like, you can see vehicles, shops, animals. Now all these things are not permanent, part of the place. They are moving. But there might be certain other things like shops and all, they are permanent features of the place. So you can talk about those things also. How, like, about the vehicles you can talk about the decor, you can talk about the shops, you can talk about the animals, all those things. Now tram cars, street vendors, market stalls, all these details you can include in the descriptions. Fine. Now, people of the place, you can also talk about the people of that particular place. So what are the things that you can include in this part? Are the locals welcoming, indifferent, or hostile? So You see, people of a particular place might have particular nature, right? They might be very welcoming, very warm towards the tourist. There are certain places where people don't like outsiders. So you can talk about that. The nature of the local people, whether they were welcoming or hostile. You can talk about their clothing's habit, facial expressions, all those things. Mention interactions, if any. Like, let's say if you have experience of interacting with them, you can talk about what was your experience, whether they were polite, whether they were curious while talking with you. So all those details you can include. Fine. So people of the place also you should be talking about. Please understand that. Otherwise, your description remains incomplete, because people are always an important part of a place. Without people, a place is incomplete. So that's why you need to talk about the nature of the people of that particular place. Fine. Okay. Next, you can talk about local cuisine, local food. Now, in every places they do have, local cuisine. For example, in Hyderabad is famous for biryani. Similarly, many other places, they are famous for their local cuisine. So you can talk about them also. Local foods, drinks, special dishes. You can all include these. All things can be included in your description. Describe their taste, aroma, and presentation. Like how do they serve that particular dishes? Okay, how those dishes taste, what was what kind of aroma they have, all those things you can talk about. You can see few examples: spicy curries, sweet desserts, fresh seafood. Now all these things you can talk about. So talking about local cuisine also is very important while describing a place. Cultures, rituals, and festival of that particular place. Now this thing depends. Like maybe in certain cases you would experience like festivals. You might attend some local festivals. You can experience or see certain local rituals being performed. In those cases, you have to talk about those things also, because they are also part of that particular place, right? So mention any events, traditions, or celebrations if you have experience. What makes the culture unique or memorable? If you have observed certain unique features about their culture, about their traditions, about their events, you can talk about those things also. So what does this particular portion do? It adds emotional or visual impressions. Fine. So this is also very important. Next, your perception or recommendation. Now this is very important. Again, this part normally again we miss. So you can conclude the description by adding this particular portion, adding your perception or recommendation. So with your opinion or recommendation, would you revisit or suggest others to go? Now this is called recommendation. So what is your perception? Like, what is your opinion about the place? Whether you like the place, whether you didn't like the place, whether you would like to revisit the place, whether you would like to recommend your friends also to visit the place. All those things you can include. So you can include expressions like a must visit, better avoided, accordingly. As per your experience, you can include this portion also. So these are the basic things about describing a place. If you remember all these points, you will never feel out of content while describing a place. So that's why these things will actually work as a blueprint for your description. So you will never feel as if you are out of content. You will always have enough information. You need to just remember these points, the factors, the aspects that must be included in the description. And another important features that you have to remember is adding sensory details. That is also very important. Fine. Now, so let's see the takeaway point of today's lecture. What we have actually learned from today's lecture. The first thing is we got to know about what are the necessary details that must be included while describing a place. So the points that we got, which must be included in the description of a place. And then we also got to know about their sequences, like how we can arrange them in proper order, in effective order, right? And then incorporating sensory details. This also is very important information that we got, that while describing a place, we must keep in mind that there should be certain description that must appeal to our or to the reader's senses, sensory details. And then creating a vivid mental picture. While you start writing up, describing a place, please remember that your purpose is not only to provide factual details, but also to include what? To create a mental picture. Fine. So this is all for today. We'll again meet with all of you with a different topic in next lecture. Thank you. Thank you very much.